Okay, ready? Okay, folks, everybody ready to get started? I want to call to order this February 4th meeting of the Iredell County Planning Board. We want to thank everyone that is here, definitely in a new location for a few months. Before we get started, I would like to have the invocation. Dear Heavenly Father, I come before you. I thank you and praise you for this day. Thank you for safety for everyone that's here with us tonight, and ask that you give them safety as they go home. Father, I just ask that you would give us guidance as we make our recommendations to our elected officials, Lord, as to how to move forward with these requests. In Christ's name I pray, amen. Amen. We're going to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So for the folks that are new to the meeting and are joining us tonight, I'm going to just go over some processes for the rezoning request that we have before us, which is the first case that we will listen to. We will allow the staff to come up and do a presentation first to the board, and then we would love to hear from the applicant if they would like to say anything. I'd love to hear what they have to say. And then after that, anyone in the audience that would like to speak for or against the request is welcome to come to the microphone and do that. After that has been done, I will close the public input for that, and then the board will deliberate and make a motion. We'll do something a little bit different on the text amendment portion of it, but it does kind of follow the same line, but I'll go over that when we get to the text amendment portion of our agenda. So, with that being said, Leslie Meadows, I will turn it over to you for case number 2602-1. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here. This is a request to rezone a parcel of land along Taylorsville Highway, approximately 42.65 acres, from light manufacturing back to residential agriculture. This is a conventional request with no additional agreed-upon conditions at this time. Staff does support this request for the following reasons. Due to impeded access, the property has failed to develop commercially at this time. The surrounding area remains primarily residential in nature, and a motion can be made for the property to remain within the 2045 Horizon Plan Employment Center Industrial Flex Office designation. So you may have found this property familiar. The applicant, Mandy Huffman with Anchor Management Team, she purchased and rezoned this property back in 2019 from RA to M1 in hopes to expand her established traffic control company. But she's been unable to develop the property due to a commercial driveway. The commercial driveway approval required an improvement to the railroad crossing per Alexander Railroad Company standards. So this map that you see here is showing the current zoning in the area. As I said, it is still residential in all directions, with any commercial uses being further east along Taylorsville Highway. And for the land use plan, staff felt that while we do recommend for the rezoning amendment, we would like to see no change in the 2045 Horizon Plan at this time. Have it remain Employment Center Industrial Flex Office along a major thoroughfare that has an active railway. But we do recognize that maybe just the timing wasn't right for the commercial zoning of this property. And this is just an aerial of the property. And this is our buffered and setback map. If the property converts back to residential, then there will be no need for the landscape roadway yard or any extra directly across Taylorsville Highway. To the west along Taylorsville Highway. And this was just a view of the existing railroad crossing, for your records, so just really pushing about that.
So, yeah, on that, so they'd have to, what, put the railroad arm, really upgrade it like you see in Mooresville or...
Right, and some of the more established manufacturing properties along Taylorsville Highway have those arms crossings.
Okay, so there is other companies that
Yes.
have upgraded because
It's closer to city limits for Statesville. But y'all have any questions for me? The applicant is here also.
Any questions for the staff? Thank you, Leslie. Don't go far. Okay, is the applicant here with us, and would you like to come up and speak to us? If you'll come to the microphone, and for the record, we need your name and address.
My name is Mamie Huffman, and the address, my home address, 2311 Johnny Martin Lane, Stony Point, North Carolina. 267.
Ms. Hoffman, anything you'd like to add to what the staff presented?
So, like she said, we did convert this to commercial with the intentions of putting my business there. And we had several talks with the railroad, and they wanted us to put the arm in. The arm, they told us, would cost us $1 million to put it in. So with that being said, we decided to stay where we were and try to sell the property. And once it was listed, we had several people reach out wanting to purchase the property. But then they would talk to the railroad, and the railroad would shut them down every time. So it's just been a big fight with them to try to get anything. They purchased the property that's directly in front of us, which is like 5 acres. And when they did that, they offered to buy ours too, but they lowballed it so bad that there was no way out of selling it to them for that. So they have made it very difficult. There was some trees along the property line, our side, not even close to the railroad. They made us cut down because they said it hinged their railroad. So I want out of the property. So I feel like if we send it back to residential, then there's a possibility somebody would buy it as a home land.
Any questions for Ms. Huffman? All right, hearing none, thank you very much. We really appreciate it. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak for this rezoning request? Okay, if you'll come to the microphone, please, and give us your name and address.
My name's Andy Martin. I live at 110 North Warranty Loop, Station, North Carolina, 265. I was the real estate agent for this Mandy. See, the railroad did approach us to try to buy that property. Wanted to buy half of the property up to the creek, which would have landlocked the rest of it, which would have been no good because there's no way to access the property. They offered less than half of what we had it on the market at the time. And they had also, anybody who would call about the interest, because I would tell people about the railroad crossing being called, it would cost about $1 million. And they would all call the railroad said yes, and it would just they would run people off every time. So, on another note, I am a homeowner in that map, and I would love to see this back residential agriculture. But anyway.
All right, any questions for Mr. Morrison? All right, hearing none, thank you so much.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it. Would anybody else in the audience like to speak for this rezoning request? How about, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak against this rezoning request? All right, thank you very much. We're going to close the public input, and now I will turn it over to the board.
Well, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of the zoning map amendment. Make a finding that while said approval is inconsistent with 2045 Horizon Plan, it is reasonable and in the public interest because due to impeded access, the property has failed to develop commercially, and surrounding area remains primarily residential in nature. In conjunction, it is also motioned that the 2045 Horizon Plan designation remain employment center, industrial flexible office at this time.
Thank you.
Second.
And we got a second. Okay, any discussion? No discussion? Okay. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your right hand. And that is unanimous. So, Ms. Huffman and members of the audience, the Board of Commissioners will meet in this same facility on March 3rd, Tuesday night, right, at 6 o'clock, right here. It's very important. They will make the final decision. The staff has made a recommendation. We have made a recommendation. They're going to make the final decision right here. And it's very important that you be here and answer any kind of questions that they may have for you at that time. So you are more than welcome to stay if you like. If not, you are more than welcome to leave this time. I'm sure it is only going to get more exciting from here. Okay, so moving right along to our text amendment for this evening. So for the folks in the audience that are remaining with us, this is our second reading of this text amendment. So we will be making a recommendation tonight to the Iredell County Board of Commissioners. This is on the short-term rentals. So the staff will get up and answer any kind of questions that we may have. The county attorney, Lisa Valdez, will come up and answer any kind of questions or have any kind of other input at that point. And then we'll open it up for you to be able to speak if you would like. And then the board will make a deliberation from there. So, with that being said, Matthew, are you going to speak for the county? Speak?
I can, and I think Lisa.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yes,
Okay.
Madam Chairman, I would request to recuse myself from this conversation and vote
Okay.
due to conflict.
So, we've got someone that would like to recuse themselves. I do need a motion, and we do need to vote on that. So, do I have a motion?
Make that motion.
Okay, second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All those in favor to recuse Lisa, please raise your right hand. All right, that's unanimous. Lisa, you are more than welcome to stay and listen, or, of course, if you'd like to get down the road, you're more than welcome to do that, too.
Stay away from this hot topic.
That's right, that's right. Okay, Matthew, I'll turn it over to you.
Sure. Good evening to the board. At our last meeting earlier this year, we did go over the first review for information only of this text amendment. Didn't have any feedback over the last month, so it is in the same format it was at that time. And we are here to ask for a vote, and Lisa Valdez will also come up if there's any questions. I'm sure she has a thing or two to say as well.
Okay, thank you. Lisa, welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm just here also to answer any questions or if there's any other feedback after the first reading of this. And then I also just want to make sure, and I'll just ask for a show of hands, you all received an email with communication from me explaining what a conflict of interest would be in a scenario under Chapter 160D. And can I just have a show of hands that there are no conflicts of interest from any other member of the board? And if Cindy, if you can just reflect that there are no other conflicts. Do you all have any questions for me following up on the last discussion, or I can step aside and if there's members from the public that want to speak and follow up after that?
Gentlemen, do you have any questions for Ms. Valdez? Okay, Lisa, we'll let you step aside and then don't go far. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, is there anyone that would like to come up and speak on this? If you'll please come forward to the microphone and give us your name and address, please. We'd love to hear from you.
Chairman, you might want to remind them that everything is recorded.
Thank you. One of our members here wanted to remind everyone that's in the room that we are being televised and recorded.
My name is Jack Benyon. I live at 263 Beaten Path Road in Mooresville. I'm currently co-chair of a committee of multiple communities having issues with short-term rentals. Not all short-term rentals, but the party houses are ruining it for the majority of the short-term rental homeowners. My biggest question about not having the permits required for short-term rentals or inspections is how. How for the county to know where short-term rentals exist, how for first responders to safely know they are arriving at a residence or a short-term rental, for the county and the state to know who should be paying occupancy taxes, to know what one-bedroom, two-bath approved septic house is advertising for 28 overnight guests, and this gets worse with the larger short-term rentals, to know what short-term rentals have added things like bedrooms, bathrooms, done plumbing, electrical, etc., without applying for permits or having inspections, to know what short-term rental owners are not compliant with tax and health codes without those inspections, to know what short-term rental owners have ignored the watershed zone regulations by adding parking, basketball courts, patios, pickleball courts, pools, etc., against the impervious regulations causing flooding and erosion to their neighboring homeowners, to know what waterfront, short-term rental owners have ignored the NCDR and NCDEQ regulations by clearing to the lake to enhance the renter's view, causing erosion and silt issues, to know what short-term rentals and owners and management companies have ignored the Lake Norman Commission regulations regarding boat rentals by having boats available for renters, bypassing the minimum, and I repeat, minimum for the safety courses required for boating on the lake. A good example would be multiple renters partying and swimming off the dock while the untrained person driving the pontoon boat, not docking the boat, but putting the boat on top of the dock where those same people are partying. And I still don't know how nobody was seriously injured there. For neighboring homeowners being taken over and or threatened with death by short-term rental renters, not safe for homeowners or first responders dealing with guns and drugs. Lastly, in 2023, Google claimed just over 700 short-term rentals in Iredell County, but our groups had presented to the county that the number was shy by at least 2 times and growing, and that was found through local advertising. In 2024, again, Google estimated 88,000 to 90,000 housing units in Iredell County, with 71% being owned, not rented, or 76,000 approximate. Again, 1,400 short-term rentals, I believe that would be 0.018%. So why does 0.018% take preference over 99.98% of the tax-paying homeowners in Iredell County? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Do we have anyone else that would like to come up and speak? If you'll give us your name and address, please.
My name is Frank Johnson. I live at 131 Supreme Court, Statesville, which is actually on Lake Norman. It's inside the Lake Norman State Park. The last time I was in this room, well, I guess it's the Farm City dinner. I've been there several times. But the last time I was in this room addressing the planning board was when we started a business out on Beulah Road. We had about 20 employees at the time. We now have 120 employees. R.B. Sloan was chair of the committee at that time. It was great. Appreciate you all doing your part and serving our community and helping our business grow. I'm here on behalf of the short-term rental situation because I have one in my neighborhood. And there are 15 homes in the neighborhood, and this one has become a nuisance in lots of different ways. I'm not opposed to all short-term rentals. I've just, having a residence on Lake Norman, having bought that house with the serenity and the peacefulness and what you get when you own your own home and you can look out your back door and you can enjoy where you live, it's important to me. It's important to my quality of life and so on. There's, like I said, there's only one VRBO, but there has to be rules. There has to be some enforcement, and there must be a permit to do that, because you can't enforce rules if there's no permit. There's nothing you can do negatively that person to make that person obey the law. And so essentially there's a permit that's necessary. We are all allowed to do what we want to do with our own property. I respect that. I want to be able to do anything I want to with my property. But it's limited to where you infringe on the rights of other people. And when you do that, you're going way beyond what your rights are as a property owner. So I'm asking that there be rules, that there be permits, and there be enforcement. There have been septic problems. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the one that's not so bad. I mean, we haven't had that many problems. We have some problems, but this is just a normal one. There are septic problems. This particular house is listed in the VRBO site that will sleep 20 people plus accommodations for extras. And it's listed as a 6-bedroom. And this tax listing, it is 5 bedrooms, and there's no way 20 people are going to fit in that house, let alone even more than that. So the septic tank overflows. There have been lots of noise problems, including late-night cursing and seemingly violent arguments that we hear from our house. We've had grandchildren come stay with them, and they've woken up in the middle of the night listening to that mess. We've smelled marijuana smoke, with motorcycles coming and going through the night, loud music after 9, and recklessness around the dock that he just described. We haven't had anything that bad yet, but it's a potential. We've had parking issues. Our road is very narrow coming down to it, and almost with every rental, there's people parking and blocking our pavement getting to our houses. They also block our mailboxes. And on one occasion, we could not even get to our driveway. We have suspected some drug dealing. We actually had a check stolen out of our mailbox. It was for $30,000. And it was caught by a bank teller in Virginia when she called when the thief attempted to cash it. That's the only way. We didn't have to press any charges because she didn't come through it, and there's a lot of trouble. This is a neighborhood where we live. The houses and location are beautiful. Why do these people get to mess up our serenity, our quality of life, because they want to make some money from a property they don't occupy full time? Why should we have to contribute to their pockets? Our neighborhood is not a resort area where rentals like you see at the beach are common. At the beach, it's okay. We're all used to going to the beach and renting a place for a week or two. And it's fun, but that's expected down there. It's not expected in neighborhoods where you have full-time residents. The beach has very few full-time residents, usually. Private property in a residential neighborhood in Iredell County is not a beach rental. They should be permitted and restricted to a designated commercial site, that's my own personal feeling, not infringe on the rights of homeowners in this peaceful neighborhood. They're not taxed like any commerce should be taxed. My business pays its taxes, and we pay business taxes. We pay all sorts of taxes. But, and we have to build to suit the county inspection department's rules and regulations. Why do VRBOs, how can they get away with no rules, and why are we allowing them the special break? And you guys may know that I ran for commissioner in 2022. I campaigned in Statesville, I campaigned in Mooresville most of the time. In Mooresville, the most asked question was, how do I stand on VRBOs or short-term rentals? That was the most question, the highest frequency question asked of me. And of course, you know where I stand. I still didn't get elected, but I just thought I should mention this. So a permit is essential, and you all have struck it, or the permit conditions for this clause has been struck out, and I can't see the reason why when it impacts so many people. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Anyone else like to speak this evening? Would you like to say anything? Okay, thank you. Ms. Valdez, do you have anything that you would like to say at the conclusion of this?
I'll answer any questions that the board has. I want to make sure that you understand, though, that what's before you, there are still rules that these uses are expected to follow. And I'm not sure if that's understood or not, but I want to make sure that you all understand the rules that are included in that text amendment. Just because there's not a permit doesn't mean that there aren't rules. And so I just want to make sure, and if you have any questions about any of that, I'm happy to answer them.
Lisa, could you explain the enforcement of those rules?
Yes, so I would venture to guess, and Matthew can correct me if I'm wrong here, but most of the complaints that are received for any zoning violation or any enforcement of any zoning violation is complaint driven with the county's department. So it's based on a phone call being made to the county and that complaint being registered as far as whatever the violation is, whether it's a short-term rental or whether it's some operation of a business, whatever it might be. And so then it's up to Matthew's department to investigate that complaint, see if there is a violation there, and then follow the procedure that's in there as far as the citation and notice violation, the citation. And when it doesn't get resolved from then, which this doesn't happen often, then it comes to my office. So that enforcement mechanism is still there. And candidly, whether there's a permit or not, somebody can still call and complain about whatever the violation is, whatever is going on, and it will still be investigated by the planning department. So if there's a violation of those rules that are still in the text amendment that you have, that's what will be investigated by the planning department and then enforced through that. And part of the enforcement that we did not change through this, but what we changed the first time with the short-term rental was to increase those violations, to increase those citations to try and make it to try and decrease or discourage the repeat offenders, so that there was a little bit more teeth to it. And that part has not changed.
You mentioned at our last meeting that there was a lawsuit against the county.
There are two.
Has there been any developments in either one of those cases?
Since our last meeting, no, and it's our hope to try and address the litigation from the county's perspective through this amendment and to address some of those concerns that were raised in that litigation.
So Lisa, just for the members of the audience that weren't at the first presentation that you did the other day, one of the things that you improved about this was it being, the consideration of it being an event center.
Yes.
So can you just remind us all, and, you know, I'm sure it will be highlighted for them as well, what that means?
Well, what we tried to do is improve the definition and the references to the event center so that it was clear what we added a definition of event center before with the first ordinance, and then we tried to improve upon that through this and clarifying what constituted an event center, and in hopes to make that clearer for, you know, part of, and this, I assume that this is part of what's happening in these neighborhoods and what's creating the nuisance is when somebody is using it in that way, that it's for a private event and it is generating traffic, it is generating occupancy, and that's not what the intent. The event center is a different permitting process, and so the single-family residential homes should not be used in that manner. So we tried to improve upon that definition and that part of the ordinance.
Okay, thank you.
I had a question. Who has authority over the penalties for the county if there's a violation? Is that just the commissioners, or can we make a recommendation?
As to the dollar amount? Or
Yeah, the
as to
dollar
the
amount.
process?
Yes.
So the process is, I mean, as it's adopted now, that process is then followed through with the planning department as far as the citation and notice of violation and those amounts. If you're asking about increasing those dollar amounts and you want to make a recommendation, I can certainly, you can include that in your motion and pass that along to the commissioners for further consideration.
Yeah, I think in lieu of concerns of the community, and I've heard those before, that, you know, in lieu of not having permits and not having some other controls, I mean, at the bottom line, it gets down to penalties. If the penalties are appropriate and increased, that may sway the landowners from, renting to reckless people. I don't know, but I'd like to include that.
I would like to note, though, that the penalty section is for any zoning violation. We can't have one violation for short-term rentals and one violation for another use. So that's any violation, whether that's somebody building something that they weren't supposed to and not complying with the notice of violation, the citation, or whether it's a short-term rental. That the penalty that's listed there is for any zoning violation.
I don't have a problem with that, because I think if the reasonable person doesn't take, would not take a foghorn or run a boat up a dock or a piece of property or whatever.
But just to be clear, you're saying that unrelated to short-term rentals, if someone were to go build a building behind their house in North Iredell, that violation has to be the same across the board for all zoning violations?
Correct.
Not just for a short-term rental?
Correct.
It's got to be the same across the board?
And I'll add real quick, that was something that was
Yeah.
discussed extensively leading up to the text amendment back last year, is we recognize, that people would like to have one violation more than the other, but if you change it, it also affects the person that puts a 10-by-10 storage grill in their backyard 6 inches into the setback. They're hit with that same drastic increase. So we had to keep them all the same. We did make those changes, though, to where I think we're in a much better position moving forward that gives us the ability to increase as it's a repeat offender. So that first time, maybe it is minimal, but again, that's also taking into consideration all zoning violations and trying to balance that.
So Matthew, what you're saying is that today's penalty process is you assess, and if it's minor, you give a slap of hand warning, official warning, whatever. But the second one, you could
Yeah, we
make a
added-
difference.
We added language back in the fall for repeat offenders, and it's much more specific. Also, we shortened the window on coming in. Well, we give staff the ability. Before, you had 30 days to fix the violation. I forget the exact wording, but that 30 days now can be interpreted by staff. If it needs to be a shorter date than that to fix something that's a bigger issue, we can make that happen where before we couldn't. So again, I feel we would be in a better spot than we would have prior to the text amendment last fall.
Just out of curiosity, what's the penalty if they do a repeat offender? 500?
200, then
Okay.
500.
I missed that.
There's also a daily $100.
200,
Yeah.
then 500, then $500 a day.
Maybe we should go to 1,000 a day.
Again, that's
I
that's
understand.
hard to do for somebody that has an accessory building
Right.
that's 6 inches into the setback.
Sure.
I mean,
Again, if that's the recommendation from the board.
I guess a big stick carries a lot more weight than just a little verbiage.
So Matthew, while you're up there, we had talked about this too, that the offenses that are occurring are typically, I'm just going to be general here, are typically are occurring on the weekend, and they're behavioral. People are having a party or doing something that is disturbing the other neighbors, let's just say. So for that, the planning and zoning department is closed on the weekend, and these folks or people in the Mooresville area are seeking relief. So they call the sheriff's office. That's their first line of defense, I'm sure. The sheriff comes out and says what he can, but he's not following necessarily zoning ordinances. So with this in place, the next step for them would be Monday morning, when planning and zoning is open, that they would come and say, we had a violation over the weekend, and then your processes would begin. Is that correct?
Correct, and I'll reference Ms. Valdez over the past couple of years. This is the only tool the county has to regulate short-term rental. It's not the best tool, but as far as our options, zoning is it with what the state spells out. There'll be a lot of things we have to figure out the best way to handle them. That's a $1 million question there, with activity on the weekend. And I don't really have that answer yet, but that doesn't really matter with having the permit requirement or not.
Right.
That issue is just
Yeah.
there, period. And that issue is with other zoning violations that exist too. Trying to actually prove that something's happening. That's not really new. That's something that we're always wrestling with.
Okay.
Matthew, one other question. So I'm looking at this section 1462B where it says subsequent violations shall utilize penalty 500. There be a continual accrual of $500 per day for each day the violation continues thereafter. How do I interpret that? Like if I'm the owner and I rent a building and party happens one weekend, this gentleman over here to my left, he complains, I throw another party the following weekend. How do you interpret continuing thereafter? Maybe it's a month later, so I just, let my neighbor be settled down and happy for a month, and then I throw another party, or rent it and the new renter has a party. How do you interpret that continue thereafter?
Let me try and answer this. So as far as the repeat offender part of it, it would be my interpretation that it's a we're just conscious of other matters that are surrounding this topic. As far as the continuing violation or repeat offender, that it is, if he gets a notice of a complaint of a violation for this weekend of whatever, whether it's this or something else, that occurs again the following weekend. If it stopped, but it occurred again the following weekend, that is a repeat. That is a second violation. That would be my interpretation.
What happens if there's a month in between, like, the summer?
a second
The summer
violation.
lasts between, Memorial Day to, for all packed persons, October, because we get, 90-degree days in October. So in that time frame, if you get 2 or 3, is that a repeat, considered repeat?
I would consider that a repeat.
As long as it's within a 12-month period, I would think so, but.
I would consider that a repeat regardless of this topic or
All
another.
right, so in other words, if I'm partying too much, Mr. Plummer complains, or might say renting, 3 or 4 times renters have a party, then he complains, that's repeated, and then you could charge $500 a day, in theory?
If there is if the planning department can find that there was a repeat violation, then yes, that is the penalty for a repeat violation.
Okay. So is it $500 for just that day or couple days, or how long does this $500 a day occur?
I believe it's for as it continues, isn't it? It's the initial and then. Yeah, the 500 is twofold. It's the initial penalty, and then it's as it continues. So if I continue doing that zoning violation for 8 days, then that $500 per day has continued because the zoning violation continues.
Okay, so, and I'll just go to the notes there. So if it's over a period of time, over 3 months, and you get 4 complaints or 5 complaints, then it's 4 times 500 or 5 times 500?
So there's the violation penalty,
Yeah.
and if the violation stops, then that penalty stops.
Okay.
If the violation continues, then it's $500 per day as long as that violation is continuing. So it depends on whether or not it has stopped. It sounds as though it has stopped, but honestly, that will probably be a case by case depending on, because you're giving me different situations and variables, and I can't really.
If I'm getting slapped a $500 fine, okay, I'll tell them, my renters behave yourself or whatever. But then, I forget about it, the renters, new renters come in, they have a good time. And we get another complaint. But it could be a week, could be a month or 2 months in between complaints. So I'm just trying to understand the 500 per day, it's 500. If it only happens on the weekends, as the chairman said,
Is it $500 just the 2 days on the weekend, or the one day the sheriff was called? Or I'm just trying to understand, how do you interpret continue thereafter? Is it just per complaint? Because you're gonna have time frames in between.
No, so continue thereafter is the violation occurs, they are getting the notice of that, and it continues to, it is a continuous event that is happening and has not been cured. And I'm speaking as far as any zoning violations. As long as it continues, that violation continues to accrue. If it stops and then it starts again, then that's when you have a repeat offender, and that starts again. So most of the time, what we have are violations that happen and they continue and they're not cured immediately. And so that repeat violation, that penalty continues to accrue, and they are given notice of that amount and that it is accruing until they cure the violation.
All right.
One last question, and then I'll let you guys sit down. I know you're ready to go there, I'm sure. So, and we'll not run through a whole lot of scenarios, but by any means. But for the folks that are in the crowd here, Friday night, they come, they start partying, everybody's gone home. They lodge their complaint on Monday morning for any zoning violation, let's just say. What kind of evidence do they need that something like that has taken place? Is sheriff called out, things like that? Is that what you guys are looking for to validate that they're just not an angry neighbor that doesn't like an Airbnb sitting next to them? You know, what are you looking for in some of that stuff?
I mean, it really is gonna depend on what the violation is.
Okay.
If you look at all the requirements in the STR, which one of those was the violation? I mean,
Okay.
so some of those, it might be that we're referring to their advertisement, whatever platform they're advertising it on, to see how many people are they saying it's leaves. Then we're gonna cross-reference that to what's allowed out there. So it depends on which one.
Which
they're
violation?
violating.
Okay.
But I would say as to some of the issues that were brought up,
Right.
if there's a concern about drugs or noise or traffic, parking in the road, those are all things that the sheriff can assist with. He can't enforce the zoning ordinance, but some of those other things are under the sheriff's umbrella and are not necessarily part of the zoning ordinance.
Okay.
And I would certainly suggest that neighbors call with any of those problems.
Okay, all right, thank you very much.
Matthew, the ag industry in this county has several agritourism venues. Do they fall under this same ordinance then?
Oh, right off, I don't know. I would have to look at each one. I mean, there could be an exemption possibly because farm use of it's an exempt. If it meets the definition of to be exempt from zoning, there could be questions there. So I'm not sure right now. I mean, if they would be exempt or not.
And I know that we are not the only county, city, state that is dealing with short-term rentals. This is something new for a lot of people, so.
You seem to be the test case for many, but.
I see that. I see that. So, all right. Any other questions for Ms. Valdez and Matthew Todd?
So if we're not sure about the agritourism part of this, I mean, that's obviously going to be a problem for the ag industry.
Are you talking about agritourism as an event with event centers or with overnight stay?
Event.
Because the event center, I don't think, is an issue under this ordinance.
So, yeah, the
I'm not
event
aware
center
of
would
what's
not be.
overnight stay.
I think this only has to do with overnight.
I
Overnight.
thought you said, if you're talking about hours earlier, that's what I'm wondering.
But, so yeah, this wouldn't change anything with what's already allowed with ag exempt uses.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Minnie, I think you had one quick comment. We'll need you to come to the front, I'm sorry.
Before I just walked up.
Yeah, yeah. that'll be fine. Just one last comment before the board will deliberate.
First of all, I want to appreciate the staff and Lisa and everybody that's been involved, putting up with me and my group for the last 3.5 years. And that's the first time I've seen her smile since we started. I think the biggest chop down the middle is partying houses are where a lot of the issues begin. But with what Matthew's going through and trying to keep with his zoning regulations, I think our biggest question is, yes, we know the sheriff gets involved with noise, parking, and all that. How, there's no permit, no registration, how is Matthew going to be knowing what houses are not being taxed properly, what houses have not been, like I said, adding 28 beds to a house that's only geared for two bedrooms or for a two septic. He's had me call him enough. The rest of us has called them enough. With them not knowing where all these houses are, how are they supposed to enforce the regulations that they've been so good at putting together for us and for the county? Again, the county's losing money on taxes for the occupancy tax because nobody knows that, hey, there's 13 houses on my 3-mile street that have short-term rentals that are doing nothing to put money into the pocket of the county. So we're basically worried about safety, all these houses that have added all this stuff without getting the proper inspections. And, that's one of the things that we're worried about as to if there's no list, no permit, how are they going to know if, hey, 254 Beaten Path Road, the septic's got an issue again. How is somebody going out there to know that they could be walking into an issue or they're walking onto my property saying, hey, you've got a septic issue, you need to fix it. So we realize that there's a line down the middle. There's two parts to this process. But if the sheriffs don't know, Matthew's departments don't know, how are those houses going to be addressed and be addressed properly? And again, thank you, and it was nice to see you smile.
Thank you very much. Do you have anything you want to add,
I just
Lisa?
want to say one thing.
And we're not going to get into a debate, but we'll
I'm
just
happy
let you.
To talk to Mr. King afterwards about his point. But I just want to make sure, respectfully, you assume that all the people that have them are going to get permits. And that's not a good assumption to make, because most of the time, the law-abiding people who are operating it appropriately would come and get a permit. I think that there were several applications when it was first enacted. But you're assuming that everybody is going to come and get a permit like they were supposed to, and that's not the case. But I'm happy to talk to you further about.
Lisa, before you sit down, isn't there some signage in here that they've got to have on the law-abiding ones? Isn't there some signage in this ordinance that has to identify them
Yes,
as a rental or a short-term rental that's already in the ordinance here
correct.
already? So
Yes, ma'am.
just to answer some questions about emergency services, when they come up and see the sign, they'll know that they're dealing in
That is still in the ordinance.
a short-term rental.
So, under the fine portion of this, if we have someone who's operating without a permit, are they subject to those fines?
Well, they're not required to have a permit, but they are required to follow the regulations. So if they are not following the regulations, then they are subject to a fine.
So on that point, if they don't have a sign, that's a violation. So what's the penalty? Is the penalty to go back to the 4.6.2, which is $200?
So typically, and I'm talking about any zoning violation, there would be given notice that what the violation is and an opportunity to cure it within a certain amount of time. That's what Matthew was talking about, that used to be 30 days, and we lowered it because something like fixing that should not take you 30 days to do. So you are first given notice of that violation to cure it. If you don't cure it, then you get into the penalty. But with all of our zoning violations, we're typically giving them notice of it first and saying, you have X number of days to fix it. If you don't fix it, this is the penalty, and it accrues daily. So it gives them an opportunity to fix it.
Okay, so it's like we have stormwater runoff. Matthew and I talked about this, where my property gets flooded or whatever, I call up, this guy comes out and says, okay, you know, Mr. Plummer, you put the silt fence up, blah, blah, blah. If he doesn't, then Matthew's team comes out and says, okay, I'm gonna fine you. So if they don't put the sign up, they can get fined, that's a violation, they can get fined, second warning, they can get fined, what, $500 or whatever.
Well, they're given the opportunity to cure it before they're.
Yeah, they're given the opportunity, if they say, have a nice day, I hear you, but don't worry about it, right?
But that's not, I guess what I'm trying to clarify is that's not a repeat offender. Then if you give me the notice of violation and I just don't cure it, then I've got the initial penalty and it's continuing to accrue every day until I do.
Okay, so.
That's not a repeat offender. A repeat offender is if you give me the notice of violation, I cure it, and then later I go and I do it again, then I'm a repeat offender.
All right, so in this scenario where I don't put the signage up and I don't have any intention of putting signage up, and the county tells me I need to put a sign up and I just say, yeah, right, see ya. Because I live out of state, right? The county, what's the county do? They can come back and fine?
So, yeah, so if you don't cure it within the time period, then a citation is issued, and that
Okay.
citation has the amount of the penalty and that it's accruing.
Okay.
And if they discontinue, and I'm talking about any violation because we've done this before, that violation continues, and if they continue to ignore it, at some point it does come to my desk. And I've probably had 2, maybe, that we've actually gone through to court, that they didn't voluntarily fix it beforehand. And that whole time, that penalty is accruing.
All right, so the officer goes up to the residential house and he sees the sign, then he knows better, right? He knows that it's short-term rental or whatever. I'm just trying to address the gentleman, from the public, his comments. So there's ways of identifying property.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the discussion, that is for sure. Okay, I'm going to close the public input now, and I'm going to turn it over to the board. Do I have a recommendation to the county commission?
Madam Chairman, motion to approve the zoning text amendment and to make the finding that the approval is consistent with the adopted 2045 Horizon Plan as promotes the guiding principles and goals of the plan, including enhanced quality of life for the residents while balancing economic development, tourism opportunities of the property owners.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, y'all discussed it enough, huh? All right, all those in favor of the motion, please raise your right hand. All right, any opposed? Nope, that is unanimous. So, ladies and gentlemen, this will move to the Iredell County Board of Commissioners right here at the same facility on Tuesday, March 3rd of 2026 at 6 p.m. Very important that you be here. They are going to want to hear what you have to say, and we appreciate your participation tonight. So, moving forward, Lisa, did you want to come back? And it's going to get real exciting now. Other business to come before the board?
Minutes.
Let's look at approving those minutes. Do I have a motion to approve those?
Motion to approve.
Okay, and a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Okay, that is unanimous. Committee assignments.
There's none. We did not get any applications for March.
Okay,
Okay.
no applications for March. Okay, anything else to come before the Iredell County Planning Board?
I make a motion that we don't come to these meetings when it's 30 degrees or below.
I never heard a second on that. Hey, we're just glad it's not snowing outside, I hope.
Exactly.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion, Adjourn.
Okay, second?
Second.
Second. All right, all those in favor, please say good night. Good night. Good night.